Okay folks, we're back here. We're going to do the gear rail on top of the gantry, and basically you just use the package that the instructions tell you to use with the proper label. As everything else, it's repetitious. Put the screw, go ahead and put Loctite, put the T-nut in and slide it in on the top of the gantry on the back slot, and you're just going to slide it in. And what the instructions, even though the plate's not here, it's calling for 2 3/4 from this face. So I set my little gauge up here, my little square, and there we are. And you're going to notice that it's further on this side, but they say 2 3/4 from this edge, from the right side. So you'll just go through and tighten everything up. And we're going to move on now to the linear rails, and I'll get those set up. Same concept, put the screws in, get your T-nuts on with Loctite, then we'll slide them in and get them set up in here. I'll be back. We went ahead and got the linear rails put in, and basically the same thing. Go ahead and put your screws and your T-nuts in, go ahead and put your Loctite on, and just get them put on the linear rails, and you come in and just slide these in. Before we tighten anything, instructions say to go ahead and put this plate on and get all these tightened up, and then we'll use the linear rail jig that they send in the kit, and we will get these straight, and then getting them all tied up, and then basically this whole portion is complete then. And then we'll move on to putting the linear rail blocks in, the bearing blocks in, and go from there. This block has 2 threaded holes. You need to make sure that they go to the outside, and the reason being is they line up with these holes here to secure up from the bottom. And on the same thing, you're only going to put screws in the top 2 and the bottom 4. And this plate goes in here like so. Okay, so on this portion here, for this I'm putting never sees on these bolts. Might as well get you 2 of these bigger tubes, because putting Loctite on all these here, this takes 25 screws, this takes 25, this takes 10. So between all this, that other tube ran out, so I am going to the second tube. Just figured I'd mention it. These are 35mm screws and 6mm size Allen wrench head that you're going to need. Go ahead and get these up in here. Now remember, we got to line these T-nuts that we put in an earlier step. And remember, all you have to do is just put a little pressure with the screw and just start and stick this in the groove and start sliding that T-nut until you feel that screw go into the threads, and you're good. Go ahead and put some Loctite on this and go ahead and tighten these down. Now the next step is we've got to align these T-nuts and all you need to do is find something small and you can get them in there and scoot them over and get them lined up. And these are 6mm size. These are 20mm screws, and takes a 6mm wrench. All these are the same. So for the jig here, you're going to have to take these off and you're going to have to slide these in. Just push on one side and they'll position in there. And go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. You're going to get you 2 clamps. And you want this face flush here. Same thing over here. And this is a 4mm. Yes, 4mm. And don't fully tighten with one of these, just kind of snug them up. That's it. Come back with a Now these smaller ones you don't want to tighten with that. You just want to get them snug up close. You come back with the ratchet. Don't ask me how I know because I've already broke them. So don't try to tighten down a whole lot. You know, you can feel it right here. I know I can feel it. And once my hand starts, hurting a little bit, I know that that's good enough. Because the last thing you want to do is break one way down in here and have to take everything apart. Because that's what's going to happen. And I learned the hard way. One is, another thing was, I may have tightened a little too much, but after looking at the bolt, it was actually longer because 2 of them were longer than the ones in the whole kit. So what I've started to do, once, let me get this. Once I put these bolts on here, get them ready for Loctite, I kind of just look at them all and make sure they're all about the same length. And I got a set of calipers that I'll go through and I'll check them, because 2 of them were on this linear rail were long, and they actually dug into the extrusion and then it broke. But I've been looking and inspecting at the rest of them as I've been doing this, and they've all been fine. It was just 2 of them, and talked to Avid, and they said that, you know, they could have gotten mixed up. All right. And on these linear rails, in the instructions, this hole here and the one at the beginning, do not take one because of this plate. So you leave those blank, and it goes for the same thing on the bottom one. Set that in, take your clamps off, you're done, and we'll move on to the next step. The last part we left off was putting these linear rails on, and this one's left loose until the Z-axis is in place. The next step is just putting these bearing blocks on, and it's the same process as putting them on the ones we did down here. You're just gonna remember to leave that plastic piece that's in there and start sliding the bearing on, and that plastic will come out as you're pushing the bearing on. And then go ahead and put about 3 pumps of grease in them and just have them kind of set here, and that'll be it for this part. Now we're going to move on to putting the bumper, the sensor block bumpers on both sides of the gantry, and we'll get to that one. This is a rubber bumper, and it takes just a screw here. This is a 5mm size screw. You're just going to attach this here and get you a 5mm, and go ahead and tighten this. You can tighten this down. Okay, and then it takes these 35mm screws that'll get screwed in to the gantry or to the end cap, and this one's set up already. I just need to tighten this up here. Okay, so, and these are a 6mm. And these we will put never sees on. So right here it's pretty simple. This plate here is going to go on here, and this bumper's made to, in case your Z-axis gets out of control, this is a bumper for it to stop. On the back side here is where actually the sensors will be. Safety net. We're going to get our never sees here, and all you do is just thread these in. Go ahead and get your other one ready. And just go ahead and tighten these up. And that's it. You'll repeat the same step on the other side, and then we'll move on to the next portion, which is setting the sensors in the back. What we did here, these sensor blocks, they go on this top groove, and they go pushed up all the way when you tighten them. And you can use a pair of calipers, and it's 1.5 inches away from the face of this plate to the face of this. So you can use it calipers or tape, whichever you choose, but it needs to be 1.5 inches. Same thing on the other side. You tighten them up, and that's it. The next part of this installation calls for the gantry plate. And as you can see, it's got an indentation here. That goes toward the gantry. Okay? And you're going to use, there's 4 M5 22mm screws. 4 here, 4 down here, 4 here, and 4 here. So 16 total. And it takes a 4mm Allen wrench. So we're going to go ahead and get a couple of them set, one on each block. And we'll go ahead and put some Loctite on these. And this may be, you have to just kind of line it up and hold it yourself. Just make sure you get the right, there's only certain holes that are going to work on this. So linear rail's loose right now, and the reason being, once you get all these secured and these tightened, the gantry plate to the linear bearings, then you're going to use this to align this linear rail to this. So that's why they tell you just to leave that loose for now. When you put it on there, just kind of get some of the bolts close. Just double check, as we did in this process down here, make sure your grease ports are to the outside. That's real crucial. When you put the Allen wrench head in there, you make sure that that Allen wrench head is fully set into that screw, because you will strip the head out. Ask me why I know. There's just little things that I've come across already, and I'm relaying it to y'all so y'all don't encounter the same problems that I did and the frustrations. One hand. Try not to use both. You'll break these. I can tell you that right now. Just by feeling them, you're gonna have to be somewhat careful with this. There's probably gonna be people that disagree with me, but I'm telling you, I know what I know and what I'm feeling. So take my advice and be careful. And the next step, it calls to go ahead and move this all the way over. And you're going to tighten these 3 here, and that'll get this linear rail here, get it straight with this, and then we'll run it across and do the other side, and then we'll tighten everything. You can just work your way down. Alright, so the next part here is going to be this top plate that's going to hold the motor and the gear, the housing, I would say, that holds the gear that's going to run along this gear rail. And what you do is, it takes, this plate has an orientation here and needs to go up. And they provide these little dowels, put them in here, and it'll slide right into there, as like so. And then we just tighten them up, and these are M8s, 6 millimeter. Go ahead and apply a little bit of Loctite to these. All right, and that takes care of this part. I'm going to get back and go through the instructions and see what's next. I'm assuming we're going to come in with the Z-axis, but that takes a little bit to get set up, and we'll get that filmed so y'all can see the process, and we'll come back. Catch y'all in a bit.